Welcome to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. I am your host, Angie Grandt, Generational Healing Specialist. And this podcast is one that I created a couple of years ago in an effort to connect with parents who, early on when the podcast first started, it was to partly share my story and use my story to help others. But when I first started the podcast, I really wanted to connect with parents who had adopted. It's part of my story, and it's a part of my story that in many ways, despite all of the knowledge that I had acquired, it's part of my story that I struggled the most to understand. And I still find today, despite all of the inner work and the certifications and all of the things, that I think where I got the most hung up in my parenting relationship was that knowing is never the way that we break patterns, right? Perhaps first, initially, we need to hear a different perspective from the way that we view things to expand the possibilities that our mind allows. So there's a little bit of knowing that may be necessary to help us see what else is possible. But once we know, it's the doing that becomes the hardest part. When I was raising my son, I knew so much about trauma and attachment and behavior management, and I I knew what the experts were telling me that I should and should not do. And yet in looking back, of course, hindsight's always 2020, right? But in looking back, it's so much easier for me to see two big things that were missing in my parenting relationship. And it wasn't that I didn't love my son enough. It wasn't that I didn't care enough or wasn't trying enough or that I was broken. What I think was missing was first, as I just started to talk about, that idea of knowing versus doing. I had a huge knowing doing gap. My mind knew what to do, and yet getting my body, my nervous system to do it was a whole separate situation. I could train and talk and teach and describe a ton of different ways to support other parents. And yet, putting that into practice in my own home was just so incredibly hard. Putting that into practice in a way that I could really make change, I just didn't know how. At that time, I didn't have a broad enough perspective to see how that could be possible. And so I had convinced myself, and perhaps you have too, that what was happening in my home, what's happening in your home, that your thoughts and feelings about it are just inevitable. Because it never even occurred to me, as silly as it sounds, but it never occurred to me that my relationship with my son could have felt easy or even enjoyable. It never occurred to me that he could have his behaviors and do what he was doing and work through what he was working through. And I didn't have to feel a victim in our relationship. I didn't have to feel frustrated or overwhelmed or like I lost control. The thoughts and feelings that I had in our parenting relationship were directly based on what my nervous system was holding on to, what my emotional system was holding on to. When I look back to what my mind knew and what was really happening in my reactions, there was such a disconnect. I would hear the trainings about how to change behaviors, but my belief system was holding so strongly onto this belief that, yeah, but that must be for other parents. these strategies that I was learning about in my trauma trainings and attachment workshops, my mind was convinced that those were for the easier kids and that somehow I was unlucky and got one of the hard ones. But that isn't true. My mind just believed that it was true and then created that reality for me. And when I say that now, if I had heard somebody say that back when I was in the thick of it, I would have said, okay, yeah, it's your fault your kid's misbehaving. Sure, that makes sense. I would have thought that was crazy. But here's what I know. I know now, not only through, additional learnings, but through practice and through working with clients, that what we believe, what we anticipate, what we hope for will continue to show up for us in our lives. Whether it be about your kids' behaviors or how much money is in your bank account or how well your day's going to go at work. When we hold a strong belief about how things are going to turn out, our mind is designed to figure out how to make it happen. Whether it be through looking for all of the evidence to prove ourselves right, or whether it be through our thoughts fuel our our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our actions. So if we're thinking that our child is, I think some repeating thoughts that I had on loop in my mind were that I can't trust him to be out of my eyesight. He's going down a scary path and is going to end up getting locked up. I can't connect with him because he has attachment challenges. These are all thoughts that looped through my head over and over and over again. And it was so easy to say, like, yeah, of course they were, because you have all of this evidence around you. But what if the evidence around me was, in fact, created by the way that I was responding to him, reacting to him, showing up for him, believing in him, and believing in his ability to do different? So, what if we as parents take a step back and really question, reevaluate, reassess the things that we're thinking about our kids? I was reminded of this idea, which prompted me to do a recording, but I'm going through a clinical EFT or emotional freedom techniques certification. And in the certification, the trainer was talking about this concept of belief and how our mind holds tightly onto a belief. And it is in that belief that we get stuck. We get stuck in a loop. And one strategy to use in EFT tapping is to tap on the polar opposites of the belief. So if the belief, for example, is that I can't ever get rid of this pain in my neck. That's what the training was about today. If the belief in the client is that I can never get rid of this pain, then a tapping technique to build into the framework of EFT tapping is to use statements like, I will never get better. I can get better. I will never get better. I will get better. To have these conflicting beliefs that the client is stating while they're using tapping. And it's a fascinating concept because it really is this idea that our mind gets so stuck on one belief. And this is true for everything, right? If we believe that our child is um, too whiny, right? Then if we believe that our child is too whiny, then we will continue to hold true to that belief and then see even things that aren't them whining, we'll see it as whining. And then we'll give them feedback about being whiny, which then gives them this message that they're a whiny kid and they'll keep whining. Or if your child is if they're hitting, right? And you're giving them feedback about hitting, stop hitting, don't hit. and we're constantly looking for every little behavior that looks like hitting, then what your child is hearing is this message about them being a child who hits. And then it just keeps happening because they start to hold it true as a belief about themselves as well. So, what if, as parents, we took a step back from what we believe to be true? Pick one belief that you have about your child. I know it's been coming up a lot recently about teenagers. And I see in a lot of the mom groups around me posts about I'm struggling with my teenager's behavior. I'm struggling with, my teenager is struggling, all of these struggles as it relates to teenagers. So pick that one problem as you see it, that one belief that you have about them, right? Your belief that they're struggling, your belief that they are too lazy at school, that belief that they will never hold down a job. Pick that one belief, whatever it is, and and invite yourself to take a step outside of yourself and look at that belief through anybody else's eyes. Look at it through the other parent's eyes. Look at it through your child's eyes. Look at it through your neighbor who, just sees the best in your child. Look at it through their eyes. Look at it through their teacher's eyes. Pick a variety of people, 20 different people, and take that problem, that belief that you hold to be true about your child, and look at that exact same situation through a variety of eyes. Because I'm confident that not everybody will agree with you, which proves that what you believe is not necessarily true. It just means it's what you believe to be true. And what if you could shift that one belief, just one tiny little belief about your child, to open up a little bit of a door to show up differently for them? What if by shifting your belief system about how you view your child's behaviors just a little bit at a time, you had the power to not only create a closer connection with your child, but also in doing so, your responses, your interactions with your child have the power to shift their behaviors, not by you telling them to stop doing whatever the thing is, right? That's what we as parents think that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to keep correcting our kids for, you know, I, of course, our job is to make sure we keep them safe and keep other kids safe, but we think we need to give them feedback about every little thing that they do. But what if it's the feedback itself that's fueling the behavior? What if you could see them through a different lens and show up for them differently and have an influence over the way that they see themselves? Because this was kind of a roundabout way to get there, but I think that many of the struggles, especially that our teens have, but our kids in general, that many of the struggles that they have are can be traced back to not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling valued for who they are. And so, what if we could stop ourselves from criticizing all the things that don't fit our expectations? What if we could shift that belief about them or their behaviors and start to see them, start to have this awareness of their value, not for, what grades they get in school, not for what, how they rank on their sports team, not for how completely they do the chores in a way that keeps you happy, but just see them and value them for being them. And if you don't believe me, then think about your own relationships and how people treat you. Do you have people in your life that criticize the things that you do, that don't recognize the contributions that you make to the relationship? And how does that make you feel? How does it make you behave? And on the flip side, do you have people in your life who just see you and appreciate you and acknowledge you and allow you the space to be yourself? And how does that feel? Because while our kids might be kids, they're still humans too. So, this is my challenge for you this week is what is that one belief that you have about your kiddo that isn't serving you well? It isn't serving your relationship well. It's causing you distress and it's causing a rift in your connection with your kiddo. What is that one belief? And take that belief and look at it through 20 different people's eyes. I trust that you have 20 different people in you and your child's life between teachers and friends and maybe pastors and neighbors and your kids' friends and partners and relatives, right? I trust that you can come up with 20 different people. If it's not 20, that's okay. But to look at that exact same situation through other eyes. This is something that tended to be so hard for me when I was in the thick of it, that I would have people in my son's life who could only see the good in him, which then made me feel like I was being a failure, made me feel like, why does he misbehave for me? But that was only part of the truth. He likely misbehaved more for me because my belief system fueled my interactions with him. My belief system about what those behaviors were going to lead to, my belief system about the kind of kid that he was fueled my interactions with him. And so he did behave differently for me, but not because he didn't like me, not because he didn't love me, not because I didn't love him either. I think that his behaviors were different for me because of my belief system. And I didn't create a space that allowed him to feel safe to speak up for what he wanted, to be himself, where I could even acknowledge or see all of the really cool things he was doing. And I'm not saying I never praised him, but my mind was so focused on all of the things that weren't going well because my nervous system was in safety mode because I had a belief about him and his behaviors. And I don't want that for you. I want to help you break that cycle in your family. I have worked so hard to break that cycle in my family, and it has a profound impact. It's having a profound impact on our relationships. And I want to help you do that too. But I don't want things to get so rough in your family before you start to see the power that you have over your relationship. All too often, we think we need the kids to change first. I know we don't believe that necessarily, but we do act like that, right? I'll stop yelling at the kids when they start listening, which that can't ever be the way it works. So, this is your challenge to find that belief that you have about your child that is not serving you in your relationship with them, and to look at it through different eyes, different people's eyes, and start to pick away at that belief because it isn't true. It's just your belief. And you can change that. You can change the way that you're seeing things. So that's it for this episode. I'm so curious your thoughts about this challenge for today. I would love to hear your insights about anything that came up for you. And as always, if you're stuck and you don't believe me, you don't know how to make this happen, you are stuck in the loop that I was stuck in for so, so long, I would love to chat with you, walk you through an exercise to help you see exactly where it is that you're getting stuck and offer you some options to help you get unstuck. So all the details for that are in the show notes. And until next time, be well. And yeah, I'd love to hear how you take on this challenge. Talk soon.